set the scene for today's shenanigan. So it's first grade and it's raining. So the teachers bring the kids into the classrooms to make them watch movies during recess, as they always did. Now today's movie is different. It's not one of those Pixar cartoons that you've watched over and over and over again that the whole class is absolutely sick of. And it's not one of those apocalyptic alien movies or medieval knight movies that are full of blood and gore that the teachers somehow allowed us to watch. No. So as the young protagonist introduces us little children viewers to his world and his island and his people, 6-year-old me is sitting at her desk completely and blissfully unaware that the character who is about to come on screen is going to be her very first childhood hyperfixation, the other half of one of her all-time OTPs for the next decade or so to come, and the single character to blame for her obsessive hyperfixation with the color blue from the ages 6 to 10. Ladies and gentlemen, enter
Astrid.
That is right, in case you hadn't guessed it already, I'm talking about Astrid Hofferson from How to Train Your Dragon. So let's keep it real here. How to Train Your Dragon is one of my absolute favorite franchises ever. So it's natural that I repay this franchise for like the, I'm sure, hundreds of hours of entertainment it's provided me throughout my life with a cosplay. However, this cosplay has been in my plans for 4 years, because right after How to Train Your Dragon 3 came out and I watched it and sobbed my eyeballs out, no spoilers, I had just started sewing. So I thought, how fun would it be to make an Astrid Hofferson cosplay? But my brain was like, whoa, not so fast. I could barely make a backstitch and I didn't know how measurements worked. And rightfully, all this cosplay stuff with glue guns and clay and paint really intimidated me. I did make a fake axe. I don't have it anymore. God knows where that went. But I was very, very intimidated by the whole process, so I just set it aside. Now, it also just so conveniently happened that I watched Race to the Edge for the first time while sewing my 1943 outfit. And yes, I am very coherent with the media I consume while I sew. And I just got this urge. There was this little voice in my head telling me to make an Astrid cosplay while I was working on a 1940s suit. And I also had this other urge, which I have had for, 3 summers in a row, to make something medieval. I never want to make something medieval in the winter, but in the summer, I am all for it. Give me that kirtle, give me those shifts, give me everything. And so I just thought, why not merge those two urges and just give into them simultaneously? Hence my idea of a historical Astrid cosplay. So I had already toyed with this idea, again, when I had just watched How to Train Your Dragon 3, but at that point, even a hand sewing project like that was intimidating to me. So I just set it aside and I started stitching my 1910s combinations, which have altered into oblivion. So now, finally, 2023, 4 years later, I'm getting to it. So since I am still pretty intimidated by all the cosplay stuff, I am going to dip my toes in it pretty slowly with this project. So what I'm going to do is the clothing is going to be as close as I can get it to, the sources that I have about Viking clothing, which will be linked in the description. And but I will add a lot of Astrid, because of course Astrid doesn't go about without her axe. So I will be making a fake axe and fake weapons, and I have decided, and my friends will squirm at this because they told me I would look bad as a blonde, but let's prove them wrong. I've decided that I'm going to buy a blonde wig and blue contacts. I don't know if I'm going to regret this decision, but hey, just come along for the ride. So let's pay tribute to Astrid Hofferson, my queen. I wanted to be her best friend when I was 6. I still want to be her best friend. So let's make this thing, and hopefully I can channel a little bit of Astrid, someone who has always related more to hiccup and or fish legs, so this project would have to work miracles. So here's the design.
Okay, so here's our design, and I will briefly go over historical context and materials while I show you this. So there she is. So historical context is that How to Train Your Dragon is set in during the Viking Age. It doesn't really have a set date to it. The series, like any of the movies, doesn't really have a set date. So I decided to base myself, I think because the Viking Age officially ends in 1066, I think that I'm gonna base myself at least at 900. So let's say that. And geographically, so there's a lot of references in Race to the Edge. For example, in Race to the Edge, Rough Nut and Tough Nut refer to themselves and the Vikings as Nordics. However, as we know, the elders have a Scottish accent, which really confused me because, again, that juxtaposed with the Nordics reference and also the surnames. So, for example, Astrid's surname, Hofferson, Jorgensen, which I think is... Jorgensen is Snotlout's surname, Thornston, which is the twins, and Ingerman, which is fish legs. It's very Nordic. It all sounds very Scandinavian, and so I was confused, so I did more digging, and How to Train Your Dragon is set in Scotland, technically Scottish Isles, like Burke is imaginary, but it's based on the uninhabited Isle of Staffa, which is in like scattered amongst other islands off the coast of Scotland where Nordic Viking settlers came to settle. So yeah, that's our geographical context. So obviously it's going to be cold. So materials. Underdress is going to be wool. Is because I already made it, spoiler alert. And I'm gonna use, the primary thread that I'm gonna use is linen thread, waxed linen thread. However, I will be switching out to silk. I have switched out to silk, in fact, because my linen ran out. I will explain later why I made this decision, but since Astrid is part of one of the main clans in Burke, because, you know, they don't really make mentions of other clans, but the Dragon Riders seem to be the descendants of the bigger clans in Burke, which are the Haddocks, Hiccup's clan, and Hoffersons, Astrids, Ingermans, Fishlegs, and Snotlout is Jorgensen, and the twins are Thornston. So I'm pretty sure she could afford silk. Also, she is the chieftain's girlfriend. So in a historical reality, it would have been very possible that her sweetheart, Hiccup, a historical version of Hiccup, could have given her, you know, silk thread. And also Burke does have access to Trader Johann, see Trader Johann. And I believe he mentioned silk a couple of times. So Astrid's got to have her weapons. So we got axe, knife, her little purse that she has, these little skulls and maybe little studs. This is the classic pearls. I wanted to have some little thread, linen, rope, whatever, bound against my wrists just for aesthetics. And the boots I already have. So apron dress and underdress are both gonna be wool with some silk herringbone embroidery just to make it prettier. And of course she has these turtle brooches, and these beads are gonna be mostly glass, although I do have some plastic beads that kind of look like glass. And I have faux leather. And so kind of the more historical parts are going to be constructed with historical methods, while the weapons, the belt, the wig, and even the brooches and are going to be cosplay. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, here is the linen for my Astrid shift. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this project. I swear, this is my dream. I have always wanted to sew medieval or Norse, and I'm finally getting around to it with my like now newfound expertise-ish in historical sewing that isn't just loose back stitches and cotton thread, because I am sure I will really enjoy it. It will be really therapeutic. So the linen that I have picked out is pretty thick, because I do want a supportive shift, and this will do quite the job. Of course, being linen, it will stretch, but This is not like thin linen. Like, let me show you compared to my other shift. I don't know, you can't touch that. I wish you could. It's really soft, but it's also really thick, so I'm really happy with the fabric. Let me show you my other shift that I will be taking the pattern from. So I have 18th century or like Regency shift. I will only be taking the pattern for the body and the gussets. And I also think the sleeves, because I do think shifts have rectangular sleeves, right? Well, my kirtle doesn't need to be very tight fitting on top, so I could get away with rectangular sleeves. Okay, let's get started. There she is in all her glory. Look at her with a little lace. The only regret with this medieval project is no lace on shifts. So yeah, this is pretty simple, but as you can see, the linen is, well, this has been washed into oblivion, but the linen is much softer and more transparent, while this linen is, it's sturdy. It's not tablecloth fabric, of course, but it is close to it, which is good for this shift. I don't mind. Even a more rough spun linen is more, I don't know, it gives me a less like 18th century, 19th century feel, and a more like Norse settlement hand spun on a wooden loom feel. I don't know what I'm saying. If I'm talking absolute nonsense, it's because it's 11:40 p.m. and I should probably go to sleep soon. But I wanted to cut this, I was about to say kirtle, this shift out before going to bed. Okay, here's my pattern taken from this shift. I've lengthened it because this is not even mid-calf. I'll sort the neckline later, but this is what we're working with so far. I'm really excited. So in case you want a pattern, there you go. All shift pieces have been cut out. Here are the sleeves. One of the sleeves, as you can see, is gonna have to be pieced because the layout wasn't gonna work if it wasn't pieced. I'm fine with that. And then we have the gussets, gores. The gores were very important to me, and main body pieces. This is all that's left, and a little bit of this will be cut off for shoulder reinforcements, and I'm sure I'll get to use the scrap in future projects, or even like interlinings of my kirtle if I need them. But yeah, pretty dang happy with my fabric usage. I do think I could have laid out the sleeves in a way that would have made piecing unnecessary, but I kind of like the piece logic because I've never really pieced visibly a garment before, or pieced period. Like, I've always been very much perfectionist oriented in how I cut out my garments, trying to make sure all of it was visually perfect. But I think this is going to be an interesting exploration in, you know, how an actual Astrid Hofferson would have, you know, made her shift. Wanted to come in and say that, wow, this is really like amazing. If you think about it, I had to sit there for like a really long time drawing threads, like one single thread. Ma'am, I had to hold on a minute, I had to sit there for the longest time just drawing one single thread from this enormous bolt of fabric to cut, and it really makes you reflect on like how much we've lost. The freaking car outside keeps honking, but it really makes you reflect on the craftsmanship that we've lost. And I feel like the Middle Ages and the Norse and Viking periods are really fascinating to me because, oh my god, because while they're not aesthetically my favorites, I think they're pretty, but aesthetically they're not as dear to me as, I don't know, the 1910s. Love my life. But they're really fascinating to me because we think of like medieval and Norse people usually, and Vikings in our imagination of history as, you know, backward and primitive and just the dark ages, you know, they didn't know what they were doing. But if you think about it, they put more care, work, and craftsmanship in their clothing than we do today. Like, who would sit there for a nightgown or a shirt or a tank top and draw one single thread by hand out of the fabric to make a garment today? No one. Okay, someone has to get out of their parking spot, I guess. But I think it's really fascinating how we see them as like backward, and we view ourselves in the 21st century to be so much better and so much more advanced. But these people really like put much more craftsmanship and care and just thought and value into their clothing than we do today. And I mean, I think this kind of craftsmanship and value that we put into our clothing has been recently lost. Like even up to the mid of the 20th century, we put so much value in craftsmanship in our clothing even after we could buy them at the department stores. And then, you know, fashion industry exploded and clothing became disposable, which is really gross if you ask me. Okay, something's going on out there. I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna start sewing up these pieces tonight and I will update you. Oh my God, I'm so tired. But this is the night after. I have only now gotten to work on this shift. So I wanted to show you because I'm pretty dang proud of my seams. So this is my gore. I've started on my gore and my felling stitches are, well, I started getting sick of it here, but you can see at the very top, they're so small. And I really wanted to challenge myself to do the smallest stitches possible. And on the outside of the linen, they're barely showing. And I did this last night too with my pieced sleeve. Here she is, this is the wrong side, but this shows you, I backstitched this piecing because I thought the piecing was gonna take a little bit more strain. I'm gonna get to backstitching and just stitching in general in a second. And I felled it down, which is my preferred seam finishing method. I felled it like this, and I'm really happy with the sleeve. Okay, so this is riveting to me, but I looked into a lot of like archaeological find reports. So as intro Margie would have explained, I have not yet filmed the intro, so I'm gonna just rephrase it here. Burke is a fictional uninhabited island near the coast of Scotland where Norse Viking settlers would have arrived and lived in and inhabited and made their home. I've been looking up a lot of Norse and Viking Nordic garments because I couldn't find a lot of, you know, Scottish finds. Most of the ones I found were medieval, which are out of my period, and I've got a window of time for me, which is the 10th century to the early to around mid 11th century, because I think historically the Viking Age ended in 1066 with the Norman conquest, and you know the Vikings kind of left those islands in Scotland during that time. So I kind of rooted it in the 9th century because if I'm portraying a young unmarried Astrid, this would have been much longer before 1066, because you know they still have a lot of time to, you know, live out their lives and, you know, have their kids and, you know, without the dragons. Spoiler alert. Why did I go on that enormous tangent? Anyway, I went on that enormous tangent to say that I have been looking at a lot of finds, and first of all, the first thing I read is that, see, my felling stitches are tinier here, that most stitches in these grave finds and these garments have been measured and are less than 5 millimeters, which, like, oh my god. It's so small, but I've been doing it. And the second is that the running stitch as a construction stitch is much more prevalent than the back stitch, and so that's what I'm going for. I back stitched this sleeve piecing seam, but I am running stitching the gore, and it goes so quick, and the stitches are pretty tiny. I thought it was going to be much less stable, but it's pretty stable, and I've still managed to get my stitches to less than 5 millimeters. Obviously it's not a requirement, but I just really enjoy it sometimes to just focus on the tiny details. So I have not yet tried on the bodice part of this because I feel like the neckline, if I want this shift to be supportive, like because I think earlier shifts would have had some sort of like a keyhole neckline, for lack of a better word, Meanwhile, the shift that I am going to make has a round neckline for bust support for me, because I really wanted something that would be supportive and that I would feel comfortable and secure in. So I think I can just do this. You know, I'm pretty sure Viking women had a way to like support their breasts. We just don't know how, and so I'm just doing the best I can with the information and sources that I have. But this shift is definitely airing towards the medieval side, so I think I'm gonna make up for it with more Viking seam treatments, which means that I'm running stitching them, which is great. Okay, I'm rambling a lot, so I should probably go to bed, but I'm really happy with how this is going so far. And also, side note, this linen is pretty hard to iron. Like, look how wrinkly it is. I just ironed it. The wrinkles wouldn't come out. What the heck? It's fine. Everyone likes a little rustic wrinkle. Screams Viking. Oh my god, what am I saying? Good night. Friends, I have good news and bad news about this shift. So let us start from the good news. Both the gores have been running stitched and felled, and I'm really happy with them. The problem are my sleeves and my gussets, because I completely put the gussets on the wrong side. Like, this part over here should be here. So I need to unpick these and flip them, essentially. I just need to flip these. I don't feel like doing that tonight. Tonight, what I want to try and do is I want to try and see if I can stitch up the shoulders of my main body pieces, and I want to, you know, measure the length of these bits, and I want to see if I can fit myself into the body pieces and have some of that supportive sewing done, or at least pinning. Anyway, I'll update you on that, but this is my big forehead slap dum-dum moment. I'd rather not think about it right now. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to acknowledge it. I'm just going to turn on my mummy forensics documentary and get on with everything else. And I'm going to bring this on the go tomorrow and fix it. Let's do this. Okay, sorry you're not getting that much sewing footage from this project, but literally the only times I find myself sewing this is on the go, where I can't really film with other people, and at home in my PJs, just raggedy before I go to bed. As you can see, I've tried this on and shaped the neckline and the sides. I now need to add my gores. This is hard, man, because it's really hard getting out of it, because it's tight underneath the bust line, which is what's supposed to be. It is supportive, it's doing its job. So it's already pretty late now, so what I'm gonna do is, I don't think I want to fiddle with the gores just yet. I want to get done with the sleeves and the gussets, so I think I'm gonna start on that tonight. But I do have like this pin here. This is on the wrong side, well, the right side, but on the wrong side I have this pin here. There she is, to mark the center front gore, and then the center back gore will be mirrored. Ooh, this is hard work. I had to, basically, I'll explain to you what I did. You can see the shape of this is pretty tubular. It reminds me of a Skims dress, like this. And then I had to raise the shoulders. I don't know if I want to raise the shoulders anymore, because I don't think that's gonna help. The support is already pretty good. I think the key here is gonna be tightening the sleeve space so that the bust is fully, not compressed, but fully like experiencing tension from all angles, and which is what a bra does. So this is going to be, in all effects, a dress with a built-in bra. I have not modeled it for you yet, for modesty's sake. I think I can model this shift with a tank top and shorts underneath. I'm gonna see what I can do about that, because I definitely want to show you how it looks like on a body for you to take a reference, but also like, I am taking you on this journey, but there are some parts of the journey that you're not going to be able to see. Okay, I haven't updated in so long because the sleeves have been hell, as per usual. They were too tight, so now I had to piece them back together, at least one of the sleeves. I sewed it in, and it was way too tight, so I had to piece it again, and so I'm doing gathered sleeves. I don't know how accurate that is, that's just what I'm doing. I added the first gore. Well, I pinned it in place, at least, at the waist. And it's not looking too bad. That's my waist. It's lower than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm pretty sure that's the right point. So yeah, I'm gonna sew this on tonight while watching Avatar 2. And so I will update you after I am done. Wish me luck, because I am so over this shift. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I'm almost done with the shift. So I haven't updated you in a long time, because actually most of the work that I've done on this shift so far has been in front of the TV watching How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2 with my little 5-year-old niece, who is absolutely loving it. Anyway, that aside, I felled the shoulder seams. The gores are stitched in. I did that in front of Avatar with my dad, actually. Both the gores are stitched in. The hem, of course, has not been taken. The sleeves have been gathered and sewn. They're diagonal. They both have the piecing. Sleeve seams are felled. The piecings, sorry, are felled. All that's left to do now is hemming and felling. So I need to hem the neckline. I've pinned that. I need to fell the shoulder seam, fell seams, gusset, all around the gusset, and then sleeve seams, and then gores, side seams, and hem. Oh, and sleeve cuffs. That's a lot of hemming. That is a lot of hemming. And I somehow lost my candle that I was using as a source of beeswax. I had a beeswax block ordered from Amazon. It was due to arrive like more than a week ago. I'm gonna go check that actually. Shift update. Light at the end of the tunnel, folks. The hem is left, and then I'm done with the shift. I could say another word instead of shift, but I will not. So yeah, hem is left. I will update you once I am done with that hem. Excuse the mess everywhere. I wanted to update you on the shift. It's perfect. It's fantastic. It fits exactly how I wanted it to. It's a bit tight to get over your head, but it's supportive, and that's all I wanted. Now, on to less good things about this shift. I had to like shorten it this much because the bias in the gores was biasing. Now I did the gores wrong in this shift, because what I did, which was very stupid, is I realized that the gores were way too long. So instead of inserting the tip of the triangle at the slit at my waist point, no. Because I thought, okay, if I insert the tip here at the top of the slit, then it's gonna be a lot of fabric wastage of good yardage, which are the rectangles at the bottom. So what I did is I kept the hem of the gores, like I kept the bottom of the gores intact, and I cut off the top, which I think contributed to the misshapenness of this triangle. But hey, this is why you make these mistakes on undies and not outer garments. I shortened it quite a bit. It is now Regency shift length, but we're just gonna say that for the sake of movement, Astrid would have had a shorter shift. Don't even start in the comments telling me that medieval and Viking women had longer shifts. I know, I tried. And I would like to think that Astrid would mess up sewing this shift just as much as me. Come on, she would forget that bias stretches. Because I completely forgot that bias stretched. Wait, shift has been fixed. It's fixed. I don't want to talk about that bias situation. I really don't. It was terrible. Yeah, that's it. Hey friends, so I'm afraid that this is it for today's video. It was gonna be like 40 minutes long if I included the construction of the kirtle and the apron dress, so that is for the next video. So thank you so much for sticking around. I will see you in my next shenanigan. Bye bye.